Hello, my name is Laura, and this is the 7th episode of my knitting podcast. Today, I'm coming to you from a very new podcast location. I literally just put this together a couple of hours ago, and I'm very excited about it. This chair was a Valentine's Day gift from my husband. We usually don't do Valentine's Day gifts at all, but he surprised me with this, and I was very excited about it. So I'm very happy. It swivels. Chair, everything like that already owned, but this is something I just made this past weekend with my little sister. We had like a little crafting Sister's Day. It was really cute. I am hoping to have a vlog about it out really soon. So anyway, I hope you like the new setup. I think it's a little more aesthetically pleasing than what I've been doing before, so please let me know if you like it, and only if you like it. Anyway, let's start with the elephant in the room, and that is what I'm wearing. This is my only finished object for the day. Well, I'll recap. Today I have one finished object, 4 works in progress, and then a couple little acquisitions to share. But this is my only finished object, and it is my porcelain sweater by Knit. And guys, I am pretty proud of this. I knit this in Sandnes Garn Double Sunday in the color Putty as the main color, and then Electric Blue as the contrast color. And the original pattern calls for a fingering weight wool plus a mohair, and I don't know, I just didn't want to try the mohair with this, so I went for a 100% merino wool DK weight, and I honestly think it turned out pretty nice. I was worried that I would this was my first time knitting color work, and so I was worried that the yarn wouldn't stick to itself well enough, or just that there would generally be issues associated with using a softer wool than what's called for. But honestly, the merino is kind of like a dry wool, and so I found that it stuck to itself well enough, and I didn't have a problem. Plus, I'm an English style knitter, so that means that I would like knit one color, set the yarn down, pick up the second color, and then knit. And so I didn't really have any tension issues because I was knitting so slowly and literally one yarn at a time. So all that to say, if you want to try completely substituting out fingering and a mohair with a DK weight merino, I would say it was pretty successful and you'll probably be fine. Anyway, so I will tell you how much I spent on this before we get into all the details. So to start, I had this much of the putty left over, and I had 9 balls of this. I bought this yarn so long ago that I don't remember what kind of witchcraft math I did to determine how much yarn I needed, but this is pretty perfect, right? Like, to have only this much left over of my last ball, I was really happy about this. Unfortunately, on the blue, I wasn't so successful. I have this much left over from buying 4 balls, so I ended up using 3 and some change. But this is okay because I have an Oslo hat that's knit in this exact color, but I made it a size too small, so my plan was to use these leftovers anyway to completely unravel my Oslo hat and make it one size bigger. Now I really only need this, so I probably will have 1 entire ball left over, but honestly, like, this is gorgeous. I'm not upset. So to recap, 9 balls of the putty, 3 balls of the electric blue, and I bought these for $11 each, and that brings us to a total of $132 for this bad boy. That's a lot of money, but I mean, for 3 months of entertainment and something that I am probably going to wear very, very often, I feel like it was worth it. I don't know, I love it. I'm very happy. Okay, so let me talk about the yarn, just a couple things, and then we'll move on to the pattern. But for the yarn, I have worn this 3 times since finishing it out in the real world. So I've worn it a couple times around the house just to try it on, but 3 times out in the real world. And there is, I don't know if you could, a little bit of pilling so far. It's fine. Like, it's only pilling under the armpit and like basically this area where you would expect it to. And I'll just depill it. Like, I really don't care. It is so soft and so lovely that I'll be okay with maintaining this. Like, I feel like I will appreciate things that don't pill. Like my Stockholm slipover v-neck, I have pulled off exactly one pill from that thing ever, and I wear it all the time. And so I definitely appreciate that aspect of it. But I also understand that if something's handmade with all natural fibers, like, I'm gonna have to take care of it, and that's okay. So yeah, I'll just have to get like one of those like little electric depillers or something. Anyway, the yarn, very happy with. Soft. Honestly, really nothing else to say. I didn't weave in any of the ends around the armpits because there are just so many ends for this like back and forth knit flat colorwork section, but that's fine. I mean, only I know, but everything else is woven in, and I'm proud that I've made it that far. So anyway, that's honestly pretty much it on the yarn. I think my double Sunday and a couple of the putty balls, there was like a knot in it, and so I had to cut around it and weave in more ends, but I don't know, what do you do? Onto the pattern. As I said, this is the Porcelain sweater by Knit, and overall, a good pattern. But there are a few things that I want to be like super nitpicky about, and by a few, I think I mean like 2. So the first is that I don't like this shoulder construction. I think it's just this is just a personal preference, but like, I think it looks a little sloppy. I don't know if you can see it. I'll insert some footage if you can't see this clearly. But basically, you start with the back panel, and as like, instead of increasing at like a steady rate or however else, whatever the other methods are, you cast on stitches. And so it made kind of like a stair step shoulder, I would say. And then picking up stitches, I don't know, like, you can only do that so well, and you can still see the stair step. So that's like, yeah, it's not my favorite thing ever. And I get it. It's because she wanted to get to the full width before you start the colorwork section versus like having a really extreme taper. And so I think that's cool, but the finished result isn't the neatest, I would say. So I don't know. I don't know if there's much you can do about that. I guess you could knit whatever shoulder construction you want and then just start the colorwork section lower. Anyway, I don't know if I'll be knitting this again, so I don't know if I need to put that much thought into it. So the other thing, and this is pretty much the only thing I modified from the pattern, are the sleeves. So as you can see, I have a pretty significant chunk right here. And basically what I did was I knit the entire body and then measured my gauge. I knew that like these bottom 2 sections were the 2 that were going to be on the sleeves, and so I measured that plus, you know, this amount of rows of white in between. And whenever I measured that out plus the length she said to knit to before you start the color work, my sleeve would have ended somewhere in a not so great place, I would say, and then I would have to have knit a lot of white and then the cuff. And that was exactly what I wanted to avoid, because this sweater is not perfect by any means, but I tried really hard to make it perfect. And I might have overdone it a little bit. After blocking, the sleeves came out a little bit longer than I was expecting, but that's okay. But basically what I did was add like 8 rows up here. Well, she says to knit to a length. I ignored that, and I just like picked a row amount that I think would give me a good length. I added 4 rows. You're supposed to knit the same amount that you knit in between here, but I added like 4 or 5 here, and then tried to balance it out as best I could for the end. And I think it turned out okay. Like, I think the reason that she says to call for such a short amount right here is because she wants the stripes to line up. I literally didn't care. I would rather, this might be like an OCD thing, but I would much rather have the colorwork evenly distributed along the sleeve than have it line up with the body. So just keep that in mind. Like, if you have longer arms like I do, I honestly would recommend adding just a little bit of length up here. And I don't think it looks too uneven, I hope. So anyway, that was it. I really enjoyed this pattern. It was, yeah, I don't know. it kind of got annoying to knit. Like by the time I got to the second sleeve, I was like, okay, I know how to do these patterns. I barely had to look at the chart because, I mean, you knit, you know, these bottom 2 3 times total. And yeah, so I was kind of ready to be done, but now that it's done, I'm really glad I did it. Okay, one other thing on the pattern is for the sleeve charts. So I think the body chart, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it lines up perfectly and it's fine. But the sleeve chart, like, doesn't line up perfectly with the pattern. Let me see if you can see the armpit. It doesn't line up perfectly with the pattern, and so I think there was a little bit of missed opportunity to make it a little more perfect. Like right here, this could have been a blue stitch in between to keep going on the 3 instead of like 1 missing in the middle. Anyway, super nitpicky. Like, I can't imagine the amount of time, energy that would have to gone into that to make that line up perfectly. So I'm reaching here. Honestly, not a problem, but just something to be aware of, I guess. So anyway, this is my porcelain sweater and I love it. And I'll mention later on, but this sweater I think has really set the tone for the things that I will be knitting for the rest of the year. And I will tell you why kind of towards the end of the video. All right, moving into works in progress. I have 4 works in progress, and I'll start with my half finished one. So, well, first of all, I got some sock blocks. I'm very excited about that. So these are a pair of vanilla socks by the Crazy Sock Lady. I almost said PetiteKnit. No. These are a pair of vanilla socks by the Crazy Sock Lady, just following her free tutorial on YouTube. And the yarn that I'm using is Twisted Ambitions sock. This is the same yarn as my first pair of socks ever. I think this is the color Tide, the colorway Tide. And I'm pretty confident on that, but I accidentally threw away the yarn label before I wrote down what the color name is. So I'm pretty sure it's Tide. But this yarn was a gift from my mom for Christmas. And so basically I told my mom and mother-in-law that if they wanted to get me something for Christmas, just some sock yarn would be great. Because I feel like that's pretty low consequence, right? Like, it's just a pair of socks. If I don't like it, then I can give it away, or I don't know, like, it's still a sweet thing and it's still something I enjoy knitting on, but it's not like a sweater's quantity worth of something that you would feel really guilty about not working with or not wearing. So I think sock yarn is a perfect gift idea for other people in your life. But anyway, I did a couple of things different from the Crazy Sock Lady pattern. So I did 2x2 ribbing up here, which I think is my preferred ribbing aesthetic at this ribbing look. German twisted cast on. I did 65 rows on the leg because I wanted it to be just a little bit longer. And then on my first 2 pair of vanilla socks that I finished, I always have a little bit of stretching right here. Like, it just doesn't quite fit across my foot. And so what I did was I added 1 more repeat in like the amount of slip stitch, like heel thingies. I did 1 more repeat. And so that made this just a little bit longer. So then this part would be a little bit deeper. And so maybe the whole thing would be a little bit deeper and fit across my foot better. Now, I just put these on the blocker yesterday, so they're like slightly damp. I haven't tried them on yet, so I don't know if that'll fit, but I'm really hoping that it will. And if it does, then I have found my perfect vanilla sock combination. And I'm really excited about that. So anyway, yeah, first kind of a half finished object. I haven't cast on the second sock yet, but I don't know, I just enjoy having a pair of socks on the needles. Okay, and then other small complaint, I know I mentioned this with my first pair of vanilla socks, but these sock blocks that I got for Christmas came with 3 different sizes, like a kid size, a medium, and then a large. And so when I put these on the block yesterday, I was like, let's put them on the medium. Like, obviously the large is like for a man's size foot or something. I put these on the medium and there was a significant amount of fabric left over. So I was like, all right, fine. Let's get out the large block. It might not fit, but that's okay. It fits perfectly. And maybe like the socks might be a little bit too big for this. So either I knit the socks a little bit too large this go round, or the large size sock block is a women's size 9. Anyway, just something funny. I don't know why it cracks me up so much. It's a silly thing. Okay. My next work in progress is probably the most exciting one. Now, this is some yarn that I got from my husband for Christmas. And by I got from my husband, I mean I picked it out with the color and the quantity and sent him the link. And then he just ordered it. But it still counts because he didn't give it to me till Christmas. Whew, but where did it go? The yarn in question is Knitting for Olive. Now, this is yarn that I have been wanting to try all last year and just didn't. And so finally I got it for Christmas, and this is Knitting for Olive Merino and Soft Silk Mohair, both in the color Dusty Artichoke. And I'm in love. I love this green so much, like so much. And I feel like this is a really iconic Knitting for Olive color, and I love green. I think I look pretty good in green, so it was kind of a no-brainer that this would be the first Knitting for Olive that I would try. And so for the pattern, I picked this yarn out with My Favorite Things Knitwear sweater number 15 in mind, but I wasn't like super convinced that that was the sweater I was going to knit for a couple different reasons. Like, I am not a huge fan of how many purl stitches there are in between the cables. That's a super nitpicky thing, but it's just like not my favorite look, I don't think. And then also I would want there to be some type of decreases on the arms, and I just wasn't quite confident enough in my ability to make that happen, having never knit cables before. And so I decided on something that I know I will wear constantly, and that everyone says is like the best pattern ever. So this is the start of an April cardigan by PetiteKnit. I am knitting the size medium, which is my PetiteKnit size. And when I first split for sleeves, I was thinking, oh Lord, this is tiny. Oh. But I haven't tried it on yet, but I feel like seeing it now, it's going to fit. I was especially worried about the armholes being too small, but I think this is fine now, especially since this is like a more fitted garment. So I think this will be fine. I'll try it on pretty soon just to confirm my suspicion that it'll be fine. But anyway, I am really enjoying this. I'm just really enjoying this. The shoulder construction, I'm sure you've heard this all before, but there's like 3 different ways to do it. Like there's a saddle shoulder, and then you just increase on one side, and then you do like regular raglan down here. And honestly, this section right here in the middle where you just increase on one side is gorgeous, and I love this. And I don't know, I just love the look of that for some reason. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite part so far. I am going to do the pretty common thing I've seen people do now, which is to do a double knit button band instead of the original ribbed button band called for in the pattern. I don't know what video I'm going to follow. I rewatched an old Handmade by Florence podcast where she said how many stitches she did. Like I think she did 15 stitches for her double knit button band. So I'm probably going to go with that too, because I liked the look of her April cardigan, but I haven't looked around yet for a tutorial on that. I think the button band will be the very last thing I do, so I've got time. But anyway, I'm super excited about this. Okay, I asked my husband to buy 6 balls of each, so 6 merino and 6 soft silk mohair, and the pattern only calls for like 4 of each. So I'll have a little bit left over. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I don't think I'll be mad about it. I love this yarn. I love this color so far. It is, as far as the yarn goes, it is working up beautifully, and I still find mohair a little bit irritating, but that's why I picked an outerwear garment. Like I know I'll always have something under this, even if it's just a t-shirt. And so I think that'll kind of keep the mohair itch away. But also, I will say, I do think I find this softer than the Sandnes Garn 10 Silk Mohair. So that's kind of promising if I can find a mohair that I think is super soft and non-irritating. But I think really time will tell as far as when I can actually wear this and see if it bothers me throughout the day. So I'll probably wait to purchase more mohair until this is done and it's been through a few wears. But anyway, that is my April cardigan. I'm loving it. It's really fun. All right, my next work in progress is a small one, but kind of a special one. This is the yarn that I bought in Paris, and it is Miss Lamotte in the color Dutch Still Life. And it's your typical sock yarn of like 75% merino and 25% nylon, but it's slightly heavier than a fingering weight. And so I was a little, I don't know, I was indecisive. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, just one skein of kind of a sport weight yarn. And so I thought that a Musselburgh hat might work. Now, I am a little concerned that I'm gonna run out of yarn to where I can't do like a folded brim, but that's okay. If I just have enough to like, you know, knit the full thing and then knit the crown and just fold it in once on itself to where my hat doesn't have a brim, that'll be fine. But I honestly think, I don't know. I really don't know if I'll have enough. I hope I do. But this is my on-the-go knit. I literally keep this in my purse and only knit on this when I'm in the car, because usually, like, my husband and I are able to commute to work together, which is incredible. And so when he drives, I knit. It's great. I have a great time. And I cast this on in the middle of January, and I actually got to like right here on it. But then one day we were driving home from work and I held it up to my head and it was just gigantic. I checked my gauge as the pattern said to, but for some reason I didn't check it correctly. I don't know, and I did way too many increases. And so I ripped back and went from a 9-stitch gauge to an 8-stitch per inch gauge, and that takes off like 2 inches across the whole hat. So this is going to make a significant difference and also help me with the yarn. So hopefully I'll have enough to make the full hat. But anyway, it was a little sad to rip it back, but it's stockinette and I just knit on in the car, so it's fine. I've almost gotten back to the point where I was before. But anyway, also speaking of ripping back, I ripped back this sweater in like 3 times. What did I do? Oh yeah, this is just something I'll say. Like, I think it's worth it to start again if you are concerned about the finished object. So like originally I cast on the size medium for this sweater. And then I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna be too big, but also, ooh, I'm gonna run out of yarn. So I ripped the whole thing back and cast on a size small. But then when I held that up to myself, I was like, this is so small. Like way too tiny. This will never fit me. So I ripped it back again, cast back on the size medium, and we kept going from there. And I'm very glad that I did that. So, yeah, and then also for here, instead of like adding more length here, I just thought that maybe I could knit with a bigger needle size to do the sleeves. And so I, like the sweater, the pattern says to use a 4mm needle. And so I cast on the sleeves with a 4.5 and then got halfway through the first colorwork section and hated it. I was like, it was just too loose, too open. And so I ripped back the whole thing and tried again. So I am very, very glad that I did that actually. I think it's worth it to enjoy the finished object. I'm very pleased with the fit on this. If this had been a small, I think I definitely would have been disappointed. So I think it's worth trying again. So all that to say, I did that here too. And it's working out. It's fun. It's cute. Yeah, it's another hat. So just something fun to keep my hands busy. Okay, last work in progress is very close to being a finished object, but I'm running out of yarn. Like, I am actively losing yarn chicken. So this is my Monday sweater by PetiteKnit. Now, it looks a little different than a normal Monday sweater, and that is for a couple of reasons. First of all, this yarn is what is this? First of all, this yarn is Hobbi Tweed Delight, which is an 85% acrylic, 85% wool, 10% acrylic, and 5% viscose. And this is a worsted weight yarn, and the Monday sweater calls for a DK weight gauge. And so for that, because I picked a thicker yarn, I went down 2 sizes. No thought went into that whatsoever. I should have thought about that. But I mean, if it fits fine. It's not as oversized as I wanted it to be, but it's fine. And I also didn't like on my first Monday sweater how it made a pretty significant square right here. And so I moved in the raglan stitches by like 2 or 3 stitches in on the front 2 and the back 2. And so that made the sleeves a little bit wider. Anyway, I did a lot of things different. I don't know if I'm super in love with this. I can tell I'm kind of treating this sweater as like, whatever. Like if it works out, it works out. The yarn was like pretty cheap. So it was just kind of more of a fun thing to do. I don't know. But all that to say, I am very quickly running out of yarn. And in fact, I'm out of yarn. I have this much left, and I thought that would be the perfect amount. I decided to do 2x2 ribbing on this, and this amount of yarn that I have left is perfect to finish the front hem. I also decided to do split hem for the bottom, and that could definitely finish it and give me like a pretty good length. Like it wouldn't be that bad. But I tried on the sweater for the first time, and the sleeves are ridiculously short. And I mean, like, you can't even, blocking and stretching this out will not help it. So I am going to have to buy one more ball of yarn, literally one more. And I'm going to have to add probably, I don't know, like 3 inches-ish to the sleeves. I'm not going to do 3 inches of ribbing. I don't like the look of that. So I'm going to rip back all of the ribbing, add like 3 inches of stockinette, and then redo the ribbing. And that's fine. So I have to do that for both sleeves. But then also if I have enough yarn left over, then I'll probably make both the back and front hem a little bit longer. And I think that will overall give me a sweater that I'm a little bit happier with. So it's cozy. It's really sweet so far. This is kind of like the sweater that I work on whenever I don't want to work on anything else. And I'm just, I don't know, need something a little bit mindless. But I don't know. I can tell it's not my favorite thing ever. This was something that I mentioned in my Everything I Knit in 2023 video, which is that this year I want to be a lot more mindful about the yarn that I purchase and making sure that it's something that I actually want to work with and that I'm actually excited about. I bought this yarn completely on a whim. I was at work, I was bored on my lunch break, and I was like, I want some tweed, and so I bought it. And it's fine, it's fun, but I don't know if this sweater pattern was the perfect thing for it. And yeah, I don't know. This year I'm definitely going to put a lot more thought into the yarn that I choose and the patterns that I choose to go with that yarn. So anyway, this will hopefully be a finished object in the next podcast, but I do have to buy some more yarn, and that's fine. Okay, so those were all of my works in progress. I told myself that I wanted to get down to like one big object and then one smaller like accessory. And so I'm at double that right now, but I think it's okay. It feels manageable. Like it doesn't feel overwhelming, especially since both of the big projects are stockinette and one of them's like almost entirely done. So it's fine. I feel good with this amount of whips that I have going on. And then one more thing that I kind of just want to like update y'all on is my blouse number 2 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. Now, I said that I was going to hibernate this guy for a while, and I did, but then Good Knits said that she was having a knit along to finish that blouse, and I was super excited about it, so I picked my blouse number 2 back up, and I started knitting on one of the sleeves. And I got about halfway done with the sleeve and was like, okay, I'm at a good enough point, I can try it on. And I tried it on, and I was just so disappointed at how giant the body was that I knew there was either no way I would wear this or like just, yeah, that was it. There was no way I would wear this. Like I just didn't like it. It was huge, but for some reason the sleeves were fine. So here's the thing too. I also measured the sweater itself, and my gauge was actually like a stitch or 2 tighter, meaning for a size medium, I should have had a slightly smaller sweater. But even though my gauge was tighter, the overall width of the body was like several centimeters wider than the pattern said it should be. So I was just completely and thoroughly confused. But then the sleeves, like what I had knit so far, was perfect. So I have no idea what happened. Literally no idea. And so I frogged it. It is gone. I have rewound all of this yarn. This is Yarn Bee Bambootiful in the color white, which is like 50% cotton, 50% bamboo. And it all looks like this now. I think I made the right decision because I just know if I felt that ridiculous in the sweater before it was finished, like there's no way I was actually going to wear it. And I briefly considered casting on a smaller size in the blouse number 2, but then I was thinking, I don't know, I love this yarn. I literally love this yarn so much. It's so soft. It splits really easily, but if you pay attention, it's super soft and super lovely. And I really enjoy working with it. But the thing is, as I was working on my blouse number 2, I kept thinking to myself, I love working with this yarn if only I was working in stockinette stitch. And so I'm thinking, rather than casting back on the blouse number 2, why don't I give myself what I wanted from the beginning, which is a stockinette pattern. And so I'm thinking about casting on blouse number 1. And I think that this yarn will go really nicely with that pattern. I gauge swatched with 5mm needles on this, and it looked horrible. It was disgusting, really. And so I went down to a 4.5mm, and it still looked questionable, not quite as good as the 4mm that the blouse number 2 was knit on. And so I ripped back the gauge swatch because it looked really bad, so I don't have that to show you. But I think I'm going to try one more time with the 4.5mm needle and see if I can get a pretty good, gauge that I like with that and see if it looks pretty. And then, yeah, hopefully I'll cast on a blouse number 1. And the reason that I'm picking blouse number 1 is because I really want some type of long sleeve summer top. And that was the appeal for blouse number 2 for me. And so I haven't put that much thought into, or that much research into other long sleeve summer patterns. So if you have other suggestions that would look really good on DK weight, 4mm, kind of a simple long sleeve summer blouse, I'm here for it. I'm open. I would love to hear your suggestions. If I do end up going with the blouse number 1, I certainly will not finish it in time for the cowl with good knits, but I think it was still motivating enough to get me kind of put in a direction that this yarn needs to go. So anyway, just wanted to give you a very long update on that whip that is no longer a whip. Last section is acquisitions, and I have a couple things to show you. I would consider my knitting for Olive kind of a big acquisition, but it's now moved on to a work in progress. And so a couple things I'll kind of throw in front of you really quick is some more sock yarn. So like I said, for Christmas, I asked for sock yarn from my mom and mother-in-law. And also, just as a side note, does anyone else not really like the phrase mother-in-law? I feel like that has a negative connotation in our culture. And I was thinking this morning when I was looking at this yarn, in French, I took a couple semesters of French in college, and one of the words we learned was, family members, and mother-in-law is belle-mère in French, which means beautiful mother. And I like that way better than mother-in-law. So anyway, I don't know where that came from. I just think that's funny and a lot nicer. So my mother-in-law, or belle-mère, picked up 2 skeins of sock yarn for me. And the first one is from Big Sky Yarn Company in the color Friendsgiving, which I think is so sweet. It's like mostly yellow, but cream with some blues mixed in there and some oranges. And it definitely reminds me of Friendsgiving, so I think that's the perfect name. Yeah, I'm excited to knit this up. It feels a little bit more rough than the Twisted Ambitions sock yarn, even though it's the same material, so that's interesting. And then my mother-in-law also got me a skein of Ice Yarns Magic Sock, which is 75% superwash wool and 25% polyamide. So I don't think I would have picked out this color combination on my own. It's like black and brown and white. it kind of, but now that I'm seeing it, I could see this as a great fall cast on or just a great gift knit. So we'll see. I think I'll have to start knitting it up before I decide if this is something that's for me. And then last gift yarn that I got was another one from my mom, Twisted Ambitions yarn, and this one's called Highway Unicorn, which is so funny. It's mostly pink with like a good chunk of orange right there, lots of like darker speckles. I think this will be a really fun one to knit up. So I was thinking about what I would do with this one. I don't know about this one yet, but I think since the color isn't super like out there, I could pick a more complicated sock pattern and branch out from the Crazy Sock Lady vanilla socks. And so I think I'm gonna do some type of lacy or cabled sock with this, and I think that'd be really pretty. So that is it for gifts. And then the last potential acquisition that I have is kind of a disappointment. So basically, I said earlier that this sweater really set the tone for what I want this year to look like. And what I mean by that is I find it so enjoyable to knit art, if that makes sense. Like, this to me feels like a work of art. And I want the things that I knit this year, I might change my opinion on that halfway through the year. I might change my opinion next week. But right now, kind of the tone that I want this year to follow is like everything I knit feels like a work of art. The April cardigan, I don't know if it quite hits that category, but I think it'll be such a good staple, and I was just excited to use the yarn in a very practical way. So, but I also do think it's beautiful, so it kind of hits that mark. But moving forward, I want the things that I knit to be very, like, a little bit more intricate, a little bit more than basics, basically. Even though I don't have enough knitting basics, it's fine. So the first piece of art knitting that I want to, or that I have in mind for this year, is the Haraboji cardigan by Aegyoknit. Now, I really like the look of this. I think it's just complicated enough with like the cable that goes down the sleeve, and I think it'll be a new, interesting construction. I think it's gonna be really cool, but I wasn't super excited about the wool that it called for, in that it called for wool, which I think would be super practical, but I enjoy soft things. I enjoy beautiful things that are also soft. So I looked around a lot for different merino wools and eventually settled on Gepard Woolia, which is 100% merino wool yarn. And it says it can knit anywhere from like a 4mm up to like a 6mm. I don't know. It has a range of gauges that it can work with. And so since the Haraboji cardigan calls for like 4.5mm needles, I thought this would be perfect. And so I ordered a lot of this yarn, and I thought I was ordering a white color or a slightly off-white color. That is not what I received. And this is what I got in the mail. I don't know if you can see it really well. You can definitely tell compared to my porcelain sweater, but it's like, oh, it's being washed out right now. But basically, I'll insert some pictures. This is a very cream color. Now, I think this is 50% on me, 50% not on me, okay? The yarn color is 102, and from the Gepard website, it's in a language I don't know. I don't know what that word means, but in English, on the website that I bought this from, 102 wheat. And when I think of wheat, I do think of yellow. I do think of this color. But the photos for this color were white. I mean, like, I'm not exaggerating. It was white. I'll insert a photo. And so I literally thought to myself, that's a weird color name for it to be white. Well, they meant the color name, not the product photo. So I have 15 balls of this, and I haven't decided yet if I'm going to return it, because I'll have to pay for the return shipping all the way to England, and then I'll have to buy more. So it's just, I don't know. Like, obviously, it's cheaper for me to send this back and get the color that I want. I'll probably go to like color 101 or something, because the yarn is so soft. I love it. I'm really excited about this. But then I'm also thinking, like, do I just keep it? I sent a picture to my sister and she was like, this will be the perfect baby knit yarn. And I'm like, great, no one I know is pregnant right now. Literally no one. So eventually this would be a great baby knit. I also think it would just be a great sweater. But the reason that I'm so hesitant to keep it is I think this color would look terrible on me. Like, I don't know. I don't know if yellow cream like matches my skin tone a little too much and it would wash me out. I don't know. I'll have to go out in the sunlight and think about it. But, and then everyone that I know has the same skin tone as me. So it's not like I could, in good faith, give this to someone knowing that it might wash them out. I don't know. So I'm really on the fence about this. I am not one to have a yarn stash. Like, in fact, it kind of stresses me out to have a lot of yarn that I'm not using. So sock yarn, I'm okay with having because they're just like single skeins. I know what I'm going to do with it. But 15 balls of a yarn that I have no plans for kind of stresses me out. So I might return this. I might keep it. I don't know. But this is your warning that if you get Gepard Woolia color 102, it is very creamy yellow and it is not white like the product photos. But it is super soft though, and I am really excited to work with this once I get it in the correct color. But anyway, okay, so that is the last kind of acquisition that I have. That was a lot for this video, and that is all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you join me this year as I make some art. And you know, I would love to hear what your favorite piece of knitwear is, in that you looked at it and you think, this is art. Like, I want to know what that is for you. And I'm hoping that, like, this is my first one for me. And I hope that throughout this year and the years to come, I will start to make a lot more of these. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.